All right, it's probably right about time to get started, so let's go ahead and do that. How's everyone doing today? So good, right? Yeah, you made it. It's Friday. You're still alive. You should be proud, right? Hopefully we'll do you proud as well. I'm Roger Altizer. I'm moderating this panel with actually talented people. And we'll start with introductions going from my right.
Hi, my name is Rachel Leiker. I am the UI UX lead at Hardsuit Labs.
Hey, I'm Chris. I'm a content designer on the World of Warcraft team at Blizzard.
Hi, I'm Vivian Wong. I'm a technical designer at WAT, as I call it.
I'm Andrew Witz. I'm lead multiplayer modes and systems at 343 Industries.
You guys announced a game last night, didn't you, Rachel?
We did, Bloodlines 2.
Ooh, that's going to be a pretty nice.
Thank you, everyone.
You know it's a good game when you get another one. All right. So, introductions. Let's talk real quick about that. So you all have these great jobs. How did you get to be you? Let's do a real short one on that.
My background is in marketing and sort of content design, and really I just kind of got bored with that, so I decided to look into UI UX. I went to school. I got my master's degree at the University of Utah Entertainment Arts and Engineering program, and from there I sort of stumbled into a few jobs, indie programs, things like that, and then landed my first real gig at Boss Key Productions via networking, and then moved to Seattle and applied out of the blue for Hardsuit and landed that gig. So.
I actually started off doing games press early on for a couple different websites. One of them was Destructoid many years ago for about a year. And then I'd always wanted to get into game development, so the cards kind of aligned. I went to DigiPen, got a bachelor's there, did a couple internships, one at Blizzard, on WoW, and one at Boss Key as well. Turned into like a full-time gig. Ship Lawbreakers, rest in peace. And then now I'm back working on WoW at Blizzard.
Hey, Chris, how'd you fall into those internships? People always ask me.
So when I was in my junior year at DigiPen, we were all sort of hustling to try to figure out like how we were gonna get real big boy game design jobs after we graduated. So my team and I, we all just started kind of working together to put out as many applications as we could. I also was attending GDC, tried to talk to as many people as I could. I think it's helpful to try to sneak into parties if you can and you don't know anyone. Just don't be afraid to make friends while you're standing in line, even though you know you don't have the invite. That actually did work out for me. But your mileage may vary, so be careful. And then same thing for Boss Key is I just kind of applied for the internship, got a design test back, did everything I could to like research the role I wanted to go for, and it managed to work out okay.
Sweet.
Yeah, so I went to UC Santa Cruz's program for game design, and
Nice. That's a great program, right?
it's pretty good. It's very CS focused, so that's kind of the background I come from. I struggled a little bit to get a job in the industry. I kept coming back to GDC, though, as a volunteer. And eventually, I got a design test out of that and kind of became a content designer, and then a level designer, and then a tutorial designer, and now I'm a technical designer.
That's a lot of designer roles.
Yeah.
For me, I pretty much was making games on my own. I have a bachelor's in creative writing, which was great. It helped me kind of think differently from UMass Amherst, and I kind of was working in startup tech in Boston, and while making games on the side and learning how to program a bit more. And finally, I was a digital media specialist. And I just really wanted to make games professionally. I just really wanted to make games. My hope is that somehow I would end up making games professionally through being a digital media employee. Didn't really see that immediately. I was just so hungry to kind of make my own games and get paid for them, the dream. And I went to University of Utah at the EAE program, and I was there for about a year, and I was hired by Ubisoft after a year, and that was the year of making 5 games simultaneously, and I ended up getting my first gig as an internship at Ubisoft Montreal, and then joined the Rainbow Six Siege team when it was just starting up.
Yeah, I've heard of this game. Yeah, yeah. Awesome. So we also want to talk not just about breaking in, but what it's like to have a successful early career. So rather than talking about like how you built your portfolio and got a job, I'd like to talk about how your portfolio is now and what it does for you. Vivian, you want to lead us off on that?
Yeah, so I have a very minimalist portfolio. I basically just have my website, and it has the 4 most recent games I've worked on, my role, what technologies I use to make those games, and a brief description of the game. I usually try and fit in a video. That's about it.
Oh, nice. I like it, right? Nice and small and
Yeah,
light.
it's very. I try to basically create the least amount of friction as possible, so people can really just high level get an idea of my skills and what games I've worked on.
No, I actually think it's really
I am never happy with my portfolio.
Oh, yeah.
I am never
No.
happy with it. I feel as though even if I like just nailed it and I'm like, yeah, this is me, I'm just always like, this is not at all me at the same time. It's just, I don't know. I'm always struggled with kind of assembling my work and kind of showing it off because, especially design, showing off the different stages and different things, it's kind of a really difficult thing to do because you kind of end up talking about it, and GDC ends up being a really great spot to kind of do that. We all kind of travel here to, hey, how did you do this thing? Or how did you make this experience? Or how are you thinking about things? And you kind of want to do that in a portfolio across the board. Is like, what is your process and stuff? And I feel as though it's hard to do that in a snapshot for me. So I kind of struggle to make them. And a best practice I kind of do is just start from the finished product and work my way back, which is kind of different from how you see things, where you go from your original idea and see how you failed till you got that thing. So it's kind of an inverse thing for me. That kind of helps me. I still struggle with them though. I don't know if I'll ever kind of like be like, yeah, I'm an expert at portfolios.
right. Yeah, fair enough.
I was kind of in the same boat a bit too, and like we actually had an assignment in school. It was just like build a portfolio. I'm like, I don't know that I've ever seen really like what a design portfolio looks like. Not sure how to structure that. Started asking people like, hey, what do you look for in a design portfolio? Got a lot of like, that's a good question. What do we look for in a design portfolio? So like clearly like I was lost. People that were like hiring for the roles were also like unclear on what advice to offer. So I started thinking about like, I don't even know what an interview is like for a design position. Oh God, like I'm out of my depth. What do I do? So I kind of structured my portfolio as like how would I want to experience an interview? Like if I can give someone content to basically like have questions to ask me that I've already thought like answers through for, then that's how I wanted to set my portfolio up. So I just kind of put like all my digital analog games, writing, whatever that I thought was relevant, kind of set it up into different categories. And I've never actually culled any of my work from the portfolio, so I like to have my homepage sort of set up as like a linear progression of like, here's where I was like X amount of years ago versus like my most recent shipped products. And I kind of try to include some stuff that problems I solved, so that if I get asked about them, like I'm not floundering to come up with things to talk about.
I like Flounder portfolios and social media.
Yeah, so social media can actually enhance your portfolio experience quite a bit because you can shoot out your pieces in a very succinct manner, and people typically can grab onto those things a lot easier than a traditional portfolio website. So if you have an Instagram, if you have a Facebook, if you're on Twitter, just throw your stuff out there and you can make some nice color commentary about the piece, kind of what you learned, your process, things like that. And that can be both invaluable to employers, but also to other people who are kind of in the industry or looking to get into the industry. They can learn a lot from things like that.
Andrew, what are you doing with social media these days?
Talking about wrestling.
Nice, nice. Actually, it's important though, right, to talk about that personal stuff.
Yeah, I think so. I think who you are is. I mean, if you're comfortable with it, right? It's a big level of comfort when you want to talk about things that you think about and your interests. I think that's really good. It kind of helps develop. I think it helps build soft skills with yourself. And so when you start collaborating with other people, you can kind of know how to start those conversations and get common ground with people you work with, which I think is super important for building like kind of that family aspect of a dev team. And that's kind of how I've always worked, is just kind of sitting down with people and what are you interested in? What do you do? What games do you play? These are all kind of it seems really easy. This is like a very, like, it's common advice, but I feel as though it's really the best advice is just, talking to people, and then doing that for yourself, of talk about things online that you're interested in and really kind of elaborate on them and share those things. I mean, that's why I kind of talk about wrestling a lot, is because I like it a lot and I think about it a lot. And it actually does help me in my game design, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing to keep in mind with social media, though, is that when you do land your job with a studio or a company, is to check their social media policies, because sometimes they have rules about those kinds of things. But also, it's good to kind of learn what the company stance on certain things are, so that you can either mirror those or they can provide resources for you to talk about them, and that makes your job super easy.
Yeah, a lot of companies have policies about that professional, personal social media thing that governs both sides of that, right?
They do, very much so.
You using social media at all?
I do, sort of.
On occasion?
On occasion.
Yeah.
I used to
Talk about Twitter Tuesday.
I used to be more active on Twitter, and I really just retweet cool stuff that I see other people tweeting about. I kind of backed off of it a lot, and again, it's one of those things like your mileage may vary. I think it's cool to build up your circle of people that are doing things that like inspire you, and try to connect with them in that way. It makes breaking the ice if you want to meet somebody who you look up to at GDC a lot easier. So that's kind of what I try to use it for now more than anything else.
That's a perfect segue into our topic about networking. Vivian, he set you up. You want to talk about networking and how you do it?
I, for the longest time, still actually have a terrible time networking. The thing that was really a breakthrough for me, though, was realizing that networking is a skill all in itself. I used to think that you were either just good at networking or you're bad at networking, and that's just not true. So that's another thing that coming to GDC every year has been so helpful, because you just get in the practice of kind of making those connections, making those small talk conversations happen, and then once you know what games like you have in common and you've played, you can talk about like, hey, did you see this like cool event they designed? How do you think they did that? Why do you think they did that? And you can make a lot of friends that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was not always I don't even think I'm really a good networker now. I mean, I think I like to talk about games a lot, especially games that I'm playing. Anywhere I've worked, I kind of always just walk around the studio, kind of asking people like if they're playing the new game that just released, or what are people kind of talking about, or just anything that someone is playing. And then if I don't know what it is, I immediately start playing it at home or something, just to kind of talk about it. I think that's a great way to start. I think there's always ways to improve being a good networker, and especially inside of your own organization. Collaboration is really easy when you kind of know people and you get to know people and you have a shared connection.
Andrew, you got a personal story about that?
Yeah, sure. So I would say probably on Rainbow, I was like, number one, moving to a new country. Canada's not like super far away, but Montreal, being an English speaker as well, I'm not a good French speaker at all. And so it was, at first I thought it was really daunting, my first year in the industry of, this is my first AAA gig, and also like, I'm really worried about communication, and I was kind of really nervous about that. And I was really surprised that my team around me actually reached out to me really well, and really were talking to me about, hey, what are you playing? And I would say, I don't really play new games lately because I'm just starting. I've been a student for a while, but I am playing this mobile game. And then all of a sudden, like my whole team was kind of playing the mobile game. We were all playing it together, and then we started playing games a lot together as breaks, like lunch breaks and stuff, and then after work and like celebratory moments. A lot of Samurai Gun was played by the Rainbow Six dev team. A lot of Samurai Gun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So this next topic could be like its own talk, right? Applying, interviewing, and landing a job. So we're going to do it like a little bit of a lightning round. I want each of you to tell your best story or worst story about applying for and landing a job. Who's brave enough to go first?
I certainly will. So when I first interviewed at Hardsuit Labs, and they told me what the project was, which was Bloodlines 2, I fangirled out really hard. Like, to the point where I was convinced I was not going to get that job, because they were just like, we cannot trust this person. But hey, I got the job, and it was fine because they were looking for passionate people. So
that's not just a bumper sticker. Everyone says, oh, we want passionate people.
Yes, they actually did. And so I'm actually kind of glad that I didn't tone myself down during that interview.
Did you show them your fanfic?
No.
Oh.
I was unprepared to show it. They know about it now, though.
Andrew, go for it.
I think the interview that was most awkward for me was, it was a lunch interview. I landed a lunch interview, and I was just, I I actually spent the majority of the lunch interview eating and not talking. And so it was a lot of just like, it was just a really big waste of time for that person. I felt really bad, but I ate a lot because I was a student and I was really hungry. I was really hungry that day.
So that's actually a really good pro tip. I actually had a recruiter once tell me, tell all of your students to order salads, foods that you can eat and still talk. I'm so tired of people drinking soup during meetings, right?
Never get the sandwich. Never trust the sandwich.
Never trust the sandwich. Nothing that's going to fill your mouth and make you
Yeah.
swallow real quick. Right. Vivian, you got one for us?
My best interview was probably I was, hustling at GDC on the expo floor, and this company called Carbine was like, "Hey, we desperately need new content designers." And this is a Friday at GDC. I'd been volunteering the whole week, and I was deliriously tired. So like everything he said, I was just like, "Yes, absolutely, I can do that. Whatever, it's cool." And I guess I was just so tired that I became confident.
Exhausted into
This is the thing.
success.
He was so impressed. He was like, "I'm not even going to give you the design test. I'm just going to like send you an offer later."
Wow. All right.
So you CA your way into a job, huh? You just work hard, get
Yeah.
exhausted, land it. Hey, it works.
I was trying to think of like a story that would be kind of in line with what you guys are talking about, but I'll take it from a different angle. So something, as I have done more interviews, I've started to realize that I didn't realize early on in my career was interview them as much as they're interviewing you, and don't be afraid to do that when you're like starting out and you're really like hungry about like, oh, I just really want to get this job. It's my first job. This would be awesome. You don't really think about all the things that might be important to you once you're doing that job, and like what could be deal breakers for you, and what might make your life miserable and kind of rob you of all that like passion. It's a hard job to get into, so don't discount yourself. And so I had an interview where I got through the whole thing, and kind of halfway through, I realized, hey, this job's not really for me. Like I don't want this role. I don't think I would jive with the team. I don't think I would be passionate about doing the work. And I still went through the interview. Like I wanted to see like how everything unfolded, and at the end of it, like my initial suspicions were pretty much like confirmed when we talked later, and it was cool because I didn't feel bad to get the like rejection letter. It was just like, nope, this all makes sense, and so that's something that I would like strongly urge you to always keep in mind as you are dealing with interviewing, is don't just kind of grab the first thing that like comes back to you. Really sort of think carefully about it before you dive into something that could be a multiple year endeavor in your life.
What's it like now? So you're not first jobbers now, right? You're all like seasoned and hardened and like rough and tumble veterans, right? So what's it like looking around now? Like some of you have changed jobs, some of you haven't. For those of you who have, what's that process? What's the difference in the process?
I think going off of what Chris just said, I mean that's something that I think thinking about how you sticking on the interview for a second, but I think it goes with everything else, is that think about what you want, but also be okay to ask questions. I feel as though that's one of the best things that ended up in my maturity in this industry, was just wanting to ask questions, because it seems really scary, because asking a question in a lot of ways, it already tells somebody, or your brain kind of tells you that, oh, if you're asked a question, then they know you don't know something, so that's why you're asking it. And so the premise is really terrifying, right? Asking a question is like immediately terrifying.
Right.
If you normalize that and kind of, the terror is always going to be there, but always be comfortable asking questions. Because when you ask questions, that's when you learn, and you learn a lot easier. And always ask questions to your teammates in an interview, anytime. Always ask questions if you want to know the answer to something, if you don't know something. Acknowledging you don't know something, I think, is probably one of the most powerful things in being more mature in this industry. Whether it's with tools, or just you don't even understand a new genre, design, anything. That's just like, it just helps you learn a lot faster, because the premise of the question is like, I want to learn this thing, and you seek out that information.
What's a scary question you've had to ask? Like what's an example, something like that?
I would say one of the scariest questions is, when you don't know how to implement something. I would say for a designer, like for me, I think the hardest question I had was, there was something that I was assigned a feature, and you kind of know what you want to do, and you go, all right, I want to build this thing, and then your next step is you kind of want to say, how do I build this?
Yeah.
Right? Because it's almost just like, all right, am I not the right person to build it? But I'm excited about it and I want to do it. But it just kind of saying, I'm being comfortable saying, I don't know how
this.
to
Yeah,
do this.
yeah.
And saying that to your team is a very terrifying thing. But when you say that and you explain what you do know about it and you explain your design, that becomes a collaborative moment between you and your team. And if you and your team are close, and you'll find that people want to support you because you're a team together. That they will actually, they'll work with you and they'll work through that problem with you, and you'll educate each other along the way. And so I think that's the most terrifying thing for me, is just saying, I have a great idea. Great, what is it? It's this. Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, I have no idea how to do this.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I don't have an idea how to do most of the things I do. All right, so let's talk a little bit about surviving and thriving. That was intended to trip me up, wasn't it? So, we, how's it go? We live to work, or we work to live, right? That's the tension, right? So you're doing this thing and you want to be happy, right? What are some keys to being happy in this career? Like specific ones, like not general advice. Like, what are things that you are doing so that you are happy in your job?
One thing that I like to do, and I also express this to my team, is be really explicit about where you would like to be in the future, either at a company or just personally, professionally, and articulate those things to your leadership. Because a lot of the times, to them, it indicates that you are willing to stay on and that you are comfortable here and you want to proceed. And it also gives them a chance to help you develop your tool set, help you, learn software, help you with interpersonal skills, whatever your particular dream or progression wants to be. They will be invested in you, and that is a very important thing.
Yeah, your managers want to mentor you.
Yes,
right? They
they
want
do.
to hear that you're hungry to grow.
Yes,
Yeah,
very much
yeah.
so.
Well, help the rest of you. What's something you're doing right now to make this career something you enjoy doing, that you want to thrive in?
I would say it's easy if you dive in head first and you're kind of fresh and you're not sure where you want to end up with your role. If you're a designer, there's so many different ways that you can go with that. There are lots of subdisciplines. So it's helpful to kind of identify early, not just maybe what work you need to do, but also what work you really enjoy doing that gets you fired up. So if you're really
What gets you fired up? What's an example of that for you? What makes you happy?
So for me, I think solving really challenging problems in systems and gameplay in particular is super cool. I think that sort of stuff is what pushes our medium forward. And so if you can find an opportunity to grab onto something that you're oh man, I really want to work on that, and you can express that to other people on your team and find a way to collaborate on that thing, you're gonna do some of your best possible work if you can put yourself into that situation, and you're gonna feel more confident in your skill set after you've successfully completed that thing. You're gonna have learned a lot, and you're gonna have seen the end result of your action in players' hands, and you're oh, okay, I feel better as a designer or programmer or whatever, now that I've completed this thing, and that just continues to build upon itself the longer that you're doing your job for.
Awesome. We're going to do 3 minutes, so we're going to go to the next slide, then we'll get to it, okay? Unless you got a story, right? You got a burning story?
I would just add to that is just learning how to give good feedback is a really big thing on how to survive and thrive. I would say learning how to give feedback really shows where you are. Learning, just always assume people are coming from the best position, and then asking them where are they coming from, and then when you give feedback, you can kind of give that as a razor, whether or not that feature or thing is kind of at the bar that you want, that they do expect it to be. So that's one of the. It can be a whole talk, but
What's the secret sauce if you're giving feedback real quick? You're really mean, you kick them and give them feedback?
No, never. No, none of that at all. I would say that one of the best things is just have a conversation with somebody and ask somebody, if you're playing something, or if you're working on a feature, what do you think is the best scenario for this feature? Because then you get educated about where that feature is going to go, and then what are the goals for that feature. Then when you give that feedback, you can give it in alignment with that versus I just don't like this. This is just why is this in the game? That's kind of this feedback loop that we call, as players, we all kind of wonder these things and then go back to being a player and not as a dev, right? It's really good to maintain that dev perspective.
Yeah.
And not lose the player perspective. It's always good to say, I don't understand something.
Yeah, fair enough. Vivian, I got one for you. Ready?
Uh-oh, yeah.
It's the big one, right? Plotting your career. Looking at where you are and planning your future. What do you do?
So I'm a notorious meanderer. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, which might be obvious based on my career trajectory. I was kind of just happy to do whatever came across my plate. And I think that's kind of the one thing that's changed recently in my career is I found technical design, and I think it's really clicked with me. Especially when it like makes sense. I used to do tech in theater, and I love solving problems for people. And I also used to make a lot of macros when I played WoW so that I didn't have to press as many scary buttons. So it kind of all, oh, and also, this is my favorite one. When I played Dragon Age Origins, and in combat, you could program your allies to do certain things at certain points in the battle. I just didn't play combat anymore because I just programmed my allies to be perfect.
Yeah, you're a technical designer. That sounds about right. Awesome.
My place.
Who else has so we've got like a minute left before we open it up to questions. Who else has a tip on plotting your career, taking stock of where you are and planning for the future?
I think I have one, and I'll be short. One thing that I like to do with pretty much every aspect of my life is learn as much as I can about something that is not my discipline. And it doesn't have, I don't have to go into in-depths about like AI planning or anything like that, but just having base knowledge of those around you really helps with pretty much everything. So get involved.
Yeah, I couldn't agree. I mean, we should always be learning, but always learning on the job is, it's pretty valuable. All right, we want you to keep in touch with us. We're going to open up for questions. We have like a couple of minutes to answer some questions so we don't run over. But you can also reach out to any of us. We are all happy to chat with you at any time. This community is all about that networking, and so we are all about that as well. If you would like to ask the panel a question, please step up to the mic. Bonus points if it is a question and not a speech. Triple bonus points if it's a short question and not a question that requires you to give your resume before asking it. All right, who's got the first one? We're going to go over here.
All right. Okay, that's good distance. So I'm a first-year student, and I always hear this word networking.
Yeah.
Can you give me an example of what a short, simple, hi, my name is blank, and I'm trying to network with you, but not be obvious about it? Can you try and give me an example of that?
That is a great question.
Oh, man.
Can you even answer it?
Honestly, I would just be explicit about it. Like, I think that networking shouldn't just be about like, hey, I really love 343. What jobs can you offer me? Like that's the only, in my opinion, that's the only wrong thing you could do in networking. But if you just say like, hey, I'm trying to network, make connections in the industry, I think people who are interested in making those connections with you are like more than happy to keep talking.
It should be organic. Like, don't like brute force networking, right? I hate the term networking in and of itself because it just sounds bad. Just go to game-related things and make friends with people. And if you have a tough time doing that, figure out like what your social lubricant is. People often suggest alcohol, but it does not have to be that at all. Don't like think that it does. I think that's like probably not great advice. So if it's like hey, you're at like a Smash Bros tournament or something, or you see somebody wearing a T-shirt that's a game that you like, that's your in. And then if the conversation isn't working out, then learn how to gracefully exit it. And if it does work out, then keep in touch, and those relationships will build up over time. And I think that's kind of like what a lot of us have experienced as we worked at different studios as well. Like don't brute force it, dude.
I literally had a student land his first job by walking up to somebody and say, I know I'm blowing this moment. Can you help me not blow the next one? Any tips at all? You don't need to remember me. And then they went to lunch, right? So I think that trying is also a big part of it. It's a great question.
Thank you
let's
very
go
much.
Here.
So, Chris, I'm in exactly the position that you were a few years ago when you described. I'm a junior at DigiPen trying to finish and refine my portfolio, and I don't know what people want on a design portfolio. For all of you, what do they want to see on a design portfolio? More specifically, a systems design portfolio.
Oh, man.
I would say, so how there's no great answer for this, obviously, but I would say what I look for, whenever I'm hiring designers or a system designer, is I usually like seeing the most recent projects and a short description of the project, and then exactly what you did, and anything that can breadcrumb me to kind of find out what that project is, because then there's some common ground for me to ask some questions, right? You kind of like, it's common ground for me to kind of go, oh, this game's really cool. Okay, they've had a lot of experience in this kind of game or this kind of game. They'd be great for this. This seems like this is a strong suit. Those are all opportunities for me to ask you questions about what am I right? And this is kind of what you want to do, what the systems you want to design. Are you an expert in this? Do you want to be an expert in something else? It's more of a call to action for me to ask questions to you about what you want. And so if it's a great fit, then awesome. So I would say start there think about breadcrumb from there. If you have a really great system that or a really great prototype, having a video or a playable or anything like that is definitely bonus points, like absolutely bonus points.
I would also say that a lot of these things, it's sort of a great lie where people say, these are the tips to do the thing. That's not how dev works either, right? We iterate and we test and we iterate and we test. So he's talked about system designers. So the best advice is actually to pull out your phone and after this talk, meet him across the hall and show him your portfolio and have him tell you what's wrong with your portfolio rather than saying this abstract principle to my portfolio. Show people, and people are receptive to what's wrong with my portfolio. And they'll straight tell you. We have 1 minute left. If you have the world's quickest question, we can do it.
What can students and young developers do while they're still growing their skills to kind of plant the seeds for their career when they actually have them?
Ship games.
Cool.
No, make them small. The biggest mistake that students make is they make things too big, right? If the first games you should be making, you should be getting them done in a week, right? And then you can grow to a month, and then you can grow to a year. But get some things done. Who else has stuff?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. My first game that I made collectively was about a sentient piece of cheese that ran around a railroad. And we made that in a week, and it was a 2D game, and it was ridiculous. But that was really hard, and we made it, and it was a playable, and we had like 2 levels, and that was the pains of making that game actually set me up for how I wanted to get better and learn more things. So that
show off a really polished like core mechanic or system or something that's like defines your game and makes it fun, and just end it there, right? Don't try to like blow it out of the water on your first try.
Here. So we don't get railroaded out of here. Railroad, cheese, railroad.
Yeah, it's a great
we're going to be across the hall, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have. Hey, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. Remember to fill out the form and vote on those things. It's radically important. You're beautiful and awesome. Bye.